Okay, so now let's take a look at chop suey, switcheroony, smush. This is used with stem changing verbs. So they're irregular, but they're only irregular in the stem. And we'll talk about where that is, okay? So an AR verb that would be a stem changer could be empezar, which is an E to IE stem changer. And empezar means to begin or to start. And as you recall, the stem changing happens in the middle step. So our first step is chop suey, which is the same exact step as in the regular verbs. So if we chop suey this, we chop off that AR ending. And we're left with this stem. But this stem in stem changing verbs changes. So, and it changes according to this map. This the E in the stem changes to the IE. And remember, there are two E's here. It's always going to be the E or the letter, whatever letter it is, closest to the ending of the stem. So we're going to change this E to IE for our stem. So if we did that, let's take a look. It will be, you write it out just like this, EMP. When you get to where the E is, you just put the IE in its place, and don't forget this Z. This letter, oftentimes we forget that there's another letter that might be after the letter that we change, and we leave it off. But we want to remember it. So this is our new stem. And stem changing verbs are also called boot verbs because they stem change in what looks like a big pixelated boot. So I'm going to go ahead and draw an outline around the boxes that are going to take this new stem. It's the first column, the singular column, as well as the third row plural. So if you guys can see, I'll draw out that boot so you can see it. Again, this is our boot, and within each of these boxes, it's going to take this new stem. So let's go ahead and populate that. E-M-P-I, E-M-P-I-E-Z, E-M-P-I-E-Z, and E-M-P-I-E-Z. In these boxes that are outside of the boot, we just keep the same old stem, E-M-P-E-Z, E-M-P-E-Z. So as you guys can see, it has that boot shape, and that's where the stem change happens. So now let's take a look. We're on to the last step, which is the smush part, and as mentioned before, it is the same exact step as in the regular verbs. So I'm going to, on the outside of the boxes, I'm going to put our AR endings, O, as, a, amos, ice, an. And all you do now is you just smush them together. So it's empiezo, I start. Tú empiezas, you start. Él empieza, ella empieza, usted empieza. This is he starts, she starts, and you, formal, start. When you go to here, it's nosotros, it's the amos on the old stem, so it would be empezamos, empezamos, we start. This one would be vosotros, which means you all. You add empezáis with this accent over the A, empezáis. And then we have for ellos, ellas, and ustedes, empiezan. With our, once again with our stem change. So this is they begin or they start, you all begin or you start. And that's the AR example for a stem changing verb. Alright, so now let's do an example of a stem changing verb that has an ER ending. And let's use the word poder. Poder is an O to UE stem changer, and it means to be able to. Oftentimes, when we say it in a sentence, we might say can, I can, you can, we can. You could also say I am able to or you are able to. This is like a good way of, you can't really say to can, so to be able to would be the infinitive. So let's start this. So we know it's a stem changing verb. And before we do that, though, we do our chop suey. So let's chop off this ER ending. We're going to throw it away, and we're left with POD, which is our stem. We could go ahead and just pop that into the nosotros and the vosotros boxes, because we know that this stem is for these two. The other stems, the other boxes, are part of the boot. And I'm going to draw that boot once again. We take a look at this. These are the conjugations that take this boot. To make it more real for you guys. Good. So now our stem change happens. This O, as this map is telling you, changes to a UE. So let's do that. So it starts off with P, and when we get to the O, we're going to put the UE in its place, ED, and then we have ED. So UED, PUED. So let's go ahead and populate each of these boxes with that. PUED, PUED, and PUED. For an ER verb, we need our ER endings. So let's go ahead and do those. O, es, hemos, es, and en. Again, these are the exact same endings as the AR, except for wherever there's an A, there's an E, right? Okay, so now let's go ahead and put these, smoosh these on. So we have yo puedo, I can. Yo puedo. Tú puedes, you can. Él puede, ella puede, usted puede. He can, she can, you, formal, can. We have over here, we have nosotros podemos, with our old stem. Podemos, we can. Vosotros podéis. You all can in Spain. And here we have ellos pueden, ellas pueden, and ustedes pueden. So that means they can and you all can outside of Spain. And that is our ER chart for a stem changing verb. Okay. So now let's do an IR example of a stem changing verb. Let's take the verb repetir. Repetir. It's an E to I stem changer. So we've covered all of the different categories minus the U to UE, which only happens in very few words. But this last one's E to I. Repetir means to repeat. It's a cognate. So you might be able to, I'm sure you see the similarities there, right? All right. So now, once again, it's the chop suey step. So we chop off this IR ending, and we're left with this stem. We can go ahead and write that stem in to nosotros and the vosotros, because these are outside of the boot that we'll draw. R-E-P-E-T. Good. So now let's move on to the next step, which is switcheroony. Switcheroony happens, once again, this is according to this map, we choose the E. It's going to be the E that's closest to the end. We're going to replace it with an I. So let's go ahead and do that. That's R-E-P-I, and don't forget this T, that's still there, T. And let me draw the boot so that we can visually see it, how these particular boxes change. So within all these boxes, we have this changed, this new stem, R-E-P-I-T, R-E-P-I-T, and R-E-P-I-T. So once again, let's write our IR endings on the outside to give us something to put together. So we have for y'all, it's always going to be O. For AR, ER, and IR, it's always an O. For tú, it's going to be an ES. And as you guys will see, the IR endings are exactly the same as the ER endings except for those nosotros and vosotros, which is what you guys saw in the regular verbs as well. So, o es e, imos, is, and en. So now we have these endings that we're just going to smush together. So it's yo repito, I repeat, tú repites, you repeat, él repite, ella repite, usted repite. He repeats, she repeats, and you repeat. Formal, for people you respect or people in authority. Over here, we have nosotros. We don't have the new stem. We have that old stem. We're going to add the imos. Nosotros repetimos. Nosotros repetimos. This one, vosotros repetís. You all repeat. This is we repeat. You, vosotros repetís. You all repeat in Spain. And finally, we have ellos repiten, ellas repiten, and ustedes repiten. Ellos repiten, ellas repiten, they repeat, and ustedes repiten, you all repeat. So that concludes our stem changing conjugation charts. Hasta la próxima.